Hello. Welcome to Power Fridays Live. And we are having a technical difficulty going live on Facebook right now. I'm your host, Janel Pulley, and my co host,
Dave Guresso. I was just getting excited about that music. I always like the music countdown.
Yes. So we are having a technical difficulty on Facebook, and I do apologize. It is not broadcasting on Facebook, but we are broadcasting on YouTube. So we are welcoming with us tonight the motivational speaker, Wydrate Lakeith Nelson, the owner of Wydrate Nelson and Associates. He specializes in motivational speaking, educational consulting, and greatness coaching. He is a father, originally from the great state of Georgia, and this is March 17th, and he's repping the great city of Dublin. He works with professionals and educators developing personal and professional leadership strategies to maximize their greatness. So working together, he'll move you to a desired direction to reach your greatness. So without further ado, Wydrate Nelson, welcome to Power Fridays Live.
Thank you guys for having me here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Well, we do thank you so much. I know I shared, like where you are from originally, but can you give us a little background about who you are and where you're from? And we'll start with that question today.
Born and raised in Dublin, Georgia. Today is St. Patrick's Day, so it's a big deal in my hometown of Dublin, Georgia. So this is my first time being in my hometown on St. Patrick's Day in like 20 years. So it's a pretty big deal. But born and raised in Dublin. For those people who do not know, Dublin is the first place that Dr. Martin Luther King gave his first public speech ever on April 17, 1944 in Dublin, Georgia, at First African Baptist Church. And the cool thing about it is that when he left the speech contest in Dublin to head back to Atlanta, he had to stop in Macon, Georgia, which is about 50 miles from here. And a lot more people got on the bus. So he was forced to stand up the 90-mile trip from Macon back to Atlanta. And Dr. King said that was the maddest that he ever been in his life. And I would argue that, considering that he gave his first speech and he was then spawned into anger, that trip to Dublin had an impact on the legacy that Dr. Martin Luther King became. So shout out to all my people in the DUB, Dublin, Georgia, where greatness begins. Currently, I live in the beautiful city of Phoenix, Arizona. But since we've been here for the last couple of weeks, my kids do not want to go back. They love it here. They want to be closer to family. So we may be relocating closer back to Georgia, which I'm not opposed to. So who knows? We might be in the Peach State, posted up somewhere soon. Atlanta, Dublin, Macon, who knows?
Ironically, I was in Phoenix about this time last year. So
man,
I really kind of know what you're dealing with over there.
Yeah.
And I do like Georgia. I really do. I think it's one of my favorite places in the country. So, and what a cool thing. Like, I didn't even realize that about MLK. He gave the first speech in Dublin, and that's where you're from. That's a really cool story. And we're coming up on the anniversary next month. It sounds like you said I was April 14th, right?
April 17th. It's actually my son Noah's. It's his birthday. And the crazy thing is, my son is only 7, but he's so into the civil rights movement. Man, we were downtown earlier today, and he was like, he's looking at the old buildings, because downtown Dublin was established in 1812. So a lot of those buildings are still there. They just restored them. So it still looks like somewhat of an old town. And my son, he's 7, and he says, "Daddy, do you smell that?" And I was like, "Smell what?" He says, "Man, I can smell segregation in the air. Look at these old buildings." So So his whole mindset is just really in tune with his birthday being the day that Martin Luther King gave his first public speech ever. So, yeah.
That is a really cool story to tell. So what is your favorite speech that he ever gave?
Oh, well, I mean, his most famous speech is probably "I Have a Dream," but I think my favorite speech was probably the last speech that he gave the day before he died in Memphis, where he was saying that I don't fear any man, because my eyes have seen the coming and the glory of the Lord. And then when he sat down in the seat, he was so exhausted. It was almost like he flopped down in the seat from exhaustion. So just the passion that he gave in that speech, not just because it was his last one, but because you could tell that he felt something. And he was at the point where he was like, "Man, I'm willing to die for this. Like, this is what it is." and he put his life on the line for it. So that speech always resonates with me, probably more than any other one, just because of I felt his heart space in it. Because I've been to that point where it's like I stand so firm on this, I'm willing to put my life on the line for what I believe in. And if you take me now, I'm gonna live forever because I've already served my mission here. So, I'll have to say that one. So I think that was, I don't know the date, but it was the day before he died in Memphis.
There's really nothing more powerful than that, right? Where somebody's willing to lay their life down on the line, and any speech delivered in that frame of mind,
Yeah.
you can't beat that. So, yeah,
No.
amazing. So, tell us your story. How did you get into being a motivational speaker? What brought you to that?
You know what? I wanted to be a motivational speaker since I was in the 5th grade, and I heard Zig Ziglar. And I remember hearing Zig Ziglar, but it didn't dawn on me like it was a possibility for me. It just made me feel a certain kind of way. I was like, man, he made me feel some kind of way. And I was in 5th grade. And then I saw Les Brown. And I was like, oh, dang, it's a black dude. If he do it, I can do it. So ever since then, this was back in the early 90s, I've had the desire to do it. But then I just evolved into other mediums like music. So opposed to focusing on being a motivational speaker in my 20s, in teens, I focused on doing music and becoming a music artist and then that whole avenue. And then as I got older, I evolved away from the music back into the motivational speaking, coaching, and training. But this has been something I want to do for over 30 years. Like literally since the 5th grade. I can almost remember the day of hearing Zig Ziglar deliver the speech and just remembering how it made me feel. And I was like, man, I couldn't even understand what it was at that age, but I knew I wanted to make other people feel the same way that he made me feel. So this goes back a long time. It just evolved over the course of time where I'm now just fully evolving back into where I started as a child. And it's a lot of times as kids, we have this dream or this imagination of what we want to do, and then as we get older that dream fades and it goes away, and then we have to grow up and become an adult and all that stuff. But this has always been kind of what I want to do. I can't think of anything else that I want to do, to be honest. Yeah, I love to teach. I'm a teacher, certified teacher in the state of Arizona. Actually, a couple years ago, I literally went from being a part-time substitute to teacher of the year. At a high school with over 3,000 students at it currently. So this has always been what I wanted to do. It just showed up differently. In my earlier age, it showed up in the form of music. Then when I got older, it showed up in the form of corporate training and, Toastmasters facilitations from the area governor to the president. And then it went into, mentoring the youth and students all around, Phoenix. And then it evolved into the classroom as a teacher. And now, I still teach when I can. I still love to teach, so I still substitute a couple times a month. But it evolved back into, the speaking, and so it's always been there. But it just took different forms along the evolution to get back to the original dream that I had in 5th grade when I first heard Zig Ziglar and discovered Les Brown.
There's greatness within you. That's the
Man,
first
that's
thing that
greatness.
comes to. And then you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And
Yes.
if you help enough people get what they want, then they'll help.
Yes.
You. Yeah, that's all Zig and Les. I love them both. And it's amazing how much our stories really align, right? Because I would say the same thing. It's like I was originally going to be a teacher. That's what I wanted. So I was going to college for it. And then I moved off of that. And then I find myself coming back. And like you said, it shows up in the other things that you choose to do. Even Toastmasters. I've been here, president. It's crazy. Janelle's shaking her head because she's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I knew it. God is great.
I was going to say with the teaching thing, I never had a desire to even teach. I didn't even choose teaching. Teaching chose me. And even my story into education is so crazy because I was still, I was focused on speaking full time. And I knew I wanted to work with the youth population. So I said, well, while I'm focused 5 days a week on speaking, building my speaking business, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to do substitute teaching. So that way I could develop relationships with school districts. And then also I could have experience working with this population. So that way I can go speak at schools for teachers and for parent groups. So that was kind of my strategy. But one day I was at one of the schools that I was working at, and I saw donuts, right? They had donuts for teachers, and I'm like, well, I'm a substitute, so I can get some donuts. So I'm gonna go get some donuts. So I go over and grab me a donut, and as I grab a donut, the principal walks up to me and says, "Hey, man, have you considered teaching full time?" I was like, "Nah, man." I was like, "I'm just here. This is my goal. I'm a speaker. I like it. It gives me flexibility. So nah, not full time." He says, "Man, I got this class, man. I think you'll be perfect for." And then he was like, "It's a science class." I was like, "Man, I don't do science like that. I don't teach science." He says, "You won't have to teach it." He said, "You'll be more like a facilitator. So we'll give you everything that you need. And if you're good at, you got a master's degree in adult education, it's just like that. You just be using the information we give you to facilitate to the kids." So I said, "Man, you know what? I'll date this situation and see." It just so happened the class that I was subbing that day was that class. So I said, "I'll do it for 2 weeks and I'll see how I feel after 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, I'll let you know." That was the worst class I ever seen in my life. I mean, the two teachers had already quit. Nobody told me this. Two teachers had already quit. There was no sub in the district that would substitute that class. And the teachers who worked at that school were forced to have to give up their prep period to rotate in to take this class. So all the teachers absolutely hated it. And here I am. I never taught high school. I never taught anything a day of my life. I walk into the classroom and it's a total disaster. It's the worst situation that I ever seen. I ain't know nothing about the subject. I was teaching two different subjects. I didn't even know them apart, to be honest. I was just giving everybody the same thing. Like, this is what we're going to do. Y'all just going to do this. So when I got to the end of those 2 weeks, I said, absolutely not. There's no way on earth that I'm going to do
God's got a sense of humor, doesn't he?
He does.
Your steps are ordered. Your steps was ordered for 2 weeks.
I was like,
it's my first thought, Janel.
I said, we ain't doing this. This ain't the one, right? So no. So I saw the principal. He rolled up with a golf cart to my class because he knew this was decision day. It was Friday. I had started on that previous Tuesday. This the Friday. As soon as I saw him, I was like, I was shaking my head. He saw me. He was like, "Oh man, Mr. Nelson not gonna do it." I said, "Hey man, I love the district. I don't mind working for the district. But is there anything else outside of this classroom that's available, man?" And he says, "You don't want to do it?" I said, "Man, I can't do it, man." I told him that morning, lunch, the worst period of the day. I won't say the worst period. I'll say one of my more challenging periods of the day. A student named Miguel Colon came in and he said, "Hey, man, Mr. Nelson," he's a Hispanic student. He said, "Man, Mr. Nelson," he says, "I actually like coming to school now, man. I actually look forward to coming to this class." And then he gave me a bear hug and he was like, "You're the coolest teacher I ever had, man." And then he went and sat down. Then another student, his name was Turtle. We called him Turtle because he always moved slow, always came to class late, nicknamed Turtle, Dominic Thomas. So he walks in and he said, "Hey, man, Mr. Nelson, it just feels so good to come to class, man, and see a teacher who cool, who hip, who know what's going on in the streets that can relate to us." He's like, "Bro, I'm just so glad you're here." And he dapped me up and he go sit down. So now I'm thinking like, man, y'all done set me up. So now I'm thinking like the principal done paid y'all.
Yes, my thoughts exactly.
Y'all done hoodwinked me, man.
But sometimes God has to, he has got to move some things in the heart, unlock it a little bit.
Yeah, but you know what? That's when I realized that teaching wasn't about me, that it was about the population of people who needed to see a representation of me in that space in order for them to be confident in themselves and stand as the greatest version. Because most of those students had never had a black teacher in their life, especially a black male teacher. So when they came in and they see me on Friday rocking my 13 J's, and then they see me coming to school fresh and I'm taped up in my clothes press and I'm freestyling on Fridays, then it changed their perspective of, man, this is a cool place to be. This is a dope class, and it made students feel differently about why they came to school that day. And I was able to use my role as a teacher in science to be able to impart wisdom, life wisdom into the students and make science relate to everything in the world. So everything was science. No matter what it was. You ate a hamburger yesterday, bro. That's chemistry, bro. You don't understand. Oh, y'all was driving the class. Oh, y'all was speeding, bro. That's physics, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's it. So it was like everything became science. And I actually won the science teacher of the year, the following year. And then after that, I transitioned to a new school where I was teaching business and marketing in line with what my education was. And then I won the teacher of the year. So I literally went from part-time teacher to teacher of the year within 3 years.
What an incredible story, man. Like, and these are my favorite kind because these are the kinds where like God only can do these things. Like you weren't even
Yeah.
looking for it. He walked
Mm-mm.
you through it. And so wisdom came to mind because I feel like what you've told us already, there's a lot of lessons, life lessons that can be gained from your story to this point that you've told it. And so, what's the wisdom gain from that part of your life that you could share?
From the educational space, it's really, if you show up as the greatest version of yourself every single day, because that's why my company is Be the Greatest. My focus was every day was to be the greatest teacher that you can be today. Obviously, there were more tenured teachers, more educated teachers, more whatever, but they were not gonna be. They couldn't be a greater teacher that I could be for me. Like I couldn't do what they do. They couldn't do what I do. But I just learned to show up every day, focus on the day, because a lot of times you start worrying about a day that don't exist yet. But I drive cross country from Phoenix to Georgia back and forth, and when I leave the city that I'm driving from, I can only see the road in front of me, and as I travel that road, the rest of the road opens up. So as a teacher, I had to take that approach. I don't have to worry about next Friday. Today is this Friday, so I'm gonna focus on today, and then when that day comes, the road is going to open up and then we'll be able to move forward. Because there were nights where I would be doing the lesson plan the night before, but that was all I needed to be, was a day in front of my students, because as I traveled that road, the rest of the path was going to open up. So it was just not living too far in the future, focusing on the now and focusing on being the greatest version of yourself today, not worrying about
Yes.
what may happen in the future. It's just right now. Just do it. Show up today. Do it today. And then tomorrow we're gonna do it again. The next day we're gonna do it again. And we just duplicate that process.
That's super powerful because most of us spend our time in the past or in the future, don't we?
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
either we're still dwelling on the past or we're worrying about the future, but we fail to realize that our greatest power is right here in the now, as you said.
yeah.
Yes.
Because we can't,
Power
we
now.
can't, you can't change what you've been through, and you can't really change what's going to happen in the future. But the present moment that we live in, that's where your peace is, that's where your joy, that's where your love, things that already happened, those are elements of the past. And the potential is so pretentious. We don't even know. We're so presumptuous to assume that God is going to grant us another day to be here on this earth. So we delay in our greatness so that way we can put it off for a day that we don't even gonna know that's gonna come, when we already got the opportunity to do it right now.
You're right. And I was just writing about this. One day I woke up a few years ago and my dad had passed. There was no warning. There was no leading up to it. There was no this like slow goodbye. It's just midnight one day. Boom. That's it. And I hear story after story like that. People losing husbands, spouses, kids. We don't know when our number's going to get called. So why not start now with whatever it is that you are called to do? Right. And I think that's the lesson. But there's something else I pulled from what you said. And that right there is the fact that you showed up exactly who you are, right? Each time you didn't change anything. You showed up dressing the way you dress, speaking the way you speak. You brought Hydrate to the table, and God used that. And I think a lot of times we're put in situations where others pressure us to feel like we have to measure up to a certain image or live according to a certain standard. But that's not really how your story went. You showed up as you are, the person you are, and that was you. So tell us about that.
I think that was very important, because high school students are super impressionable when it comes to social media, all the artists that they like. And Janelle and I was talking about this maybe yesterday, or the day before, about how a lot of the artists that the kids love and listen to, they use stage name. They using a Rick Ross or a Jay-Z, and not I love Rick Ross and Jay-Z, so this is not a knock on them because I listen to Rick Ross all the time. But that ain't that man name though. You know what I mean? Jay-Z is not his name. Lil Durk,
Yes.
that ain't that man name. Lil
Mm-hmm.
Baby, that ain't his name. So a lot of times people see people who are standing in their business persona, standing in their brand, and then they want to emulate being somebody who's not even really being authentically themselves. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was important to show up as myself, to give the students permission to show up as they self. Because I show up and say, man, I'm dope just the way I am, man. My name, Hydrate Lakeith Nelson, dog. I don't have a stage name. if people say, "Oh, you do music?" Yeah, I do music. How I find you? My name Wadre Nelson. Like I don't have a stage name because this is the reality of who I am. I'm so confident in who God has evolved me to be that I don't have to pretend to be something that I'm not to sell other people on something that ain't real. Because now I'm selling you on a dream that ain't even real. Now you think you got to be somebody that you not in order for you to be great. So I showed up just to let them know that I'm gonna be great just like this. Rocking my
Yes.
dashikis just like this every single day. Rocking my J's on Friday. Just like freestyling in class, doing a motivational quote every single day that we start class. 365 days, we reading quotes every single day. But I'm not going to show up as somebody else and bring an alias into the classroom when I can show up as myself to give them permission to show up as themselves because that's where your greatness is. I'm one of one. I'm cut from a whole different cloth. But if I show
Original.
up, yeah, but if I show up trying to be cut from somebody else's cloth, now I'm a carbon copy, and the copy don't have much as value as the original.
The master is where it's at.
Man, that's where it's at.
So how did you develop this confidence? Because I think a lot of people struggle with this. So what happened in your life that helped you develop that kind of confidence that you could share with others?
I think getting beat down, the more you go through adversity, like I was built for this. Like I've been kicked down so many times. I've been depressed. I've been suicidal, homicidal. I've been homeless. I done been through so much adversity that after I realized that none of that stuff couldn't take me out, I'm like, I done been through all of that and none of you can break me? Huh? So you gonna tell me that it ain't no challenge on this earth that's gonna start? You know what I mean? So it comes from that, from having to get it out the mud, from having to have dirt under my fingernails for extended periods of time because I'm getting it out the mud. I'm watching one of my closest friends. I watched him pick him up and put his body in the body bag. I was there when my grandmother passed. I watched my grandfather take his last breath. I've been heartbroken before. I've had people to try to shoot at me in my back and kill me. So I've been through so many different things. I had friends turn their back and family, all types of crazy stuff that happened. So after I realized that none of that stuff can take me out, I'm ready for whatever challenge come my way because I'm built for it. I'm built for it.
Yes.
Passion and purpose through pain, right? It's something I talk about a lot. So many people think passion just what makes me excited, but so many fail to realize it's your story that has the power. It's everything you've been through that you draw from that gives you that energy and that ability to influence and inspire others and even help others get through the same stuff you've gone through. So, and I hear it over and over again, the greatest passion, the greatest purpose, the greatest stories ever told, they come from a place of deep pain and even despair at times.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing, Wadre, another sort of dichotomy. Some people go through that and they go to the pit, right? They go down. Some people go through that stuff and they rise up because they realize I'm not broken. I'm still standing. And as long as there's breath in my lungs, I'm going to press forward. What really differentiates between those two types of people?
Well, I mean, it could be a variety of different things because I think that everybody has to go through it to get to it. And some people will understand that I'm pitching a tent here, but some people will build a home somewhere where they should be pitching a tent. A lady told me today, she says, oh my gosh, I was downtown. And she says, I used to be so happy-go-lucky. I was this way. And now I'm like this. And I says, well, let me ask you this. I said, where you are now, is it where you passing through or is this your destination? Because if you choose to build a home where you're traveling through, then you're going to choose to sit in despair. But if you say, I'm traveling through this, one of my mottos is you got to go through it to get to it, and there's no way around it. My motto is be the greatest. You can't be the greatest unless you pass a great test. It's in the word. So, a lot of it is how are you built? Who's around you? How are you using your adversity to push you forward? It's like the story of the coffee bean, the egg, and the carrot. Y'all familiar with that story?
I know about the coffee bean, but I don't know about the other two. Yes.
Coffee bean, egg, and carrot. You take those three things, you put them in hot water. You look at the carrot looks the same, but it's soft. You look at the egg, it looks the same, but it's hard. You look at the coffee bean, it transforms the situation into something else. So a lot of people are the egg, a lot of people are the carrot, But the goal is for us to be the coffee bean. So no matter what situation we go through, we're not impacted by that situation, that we change that situation into something bigger, better, and more powerful.
Wow, that's true transformation.
Yeah.
That's true transformation. Yes. And oh well, I am I am so like, oh my gosh. Um there's just so much to unpack in this conversation. And
I know we ain't even got to the good stuff yet. That's great.
you know, and Hydrate, I believe that with you being a father, share with us about that experience in how you can teach your children in such a way that if when they're faced with adversity, then what do they do? Because I know that we all as parents always set people up. You want to set your children up to where, hey, I want to protect them from this happening. So what would you say to that question? Is like, what do you do to share this with your children?
Well, I let them know that adversity is coming. It's a part of life. Like, the hard times are gonna come, but my kids are not children. They're superheroes, and their power is to block negativity and reboot it with positivity. So when adversity happens, they understand that it's supposed to happen, because that's the only way you can use your superpower. If nothing bad happens, you can never use your power. Oh, something bad happens, block it, reboot it with positive energy. So I put that in their head every day. You'll hear when my son comes in. Yeah, that's every single day. If we're out somewhere and I'm talking to somebody, my son will say, "Hey, Dad, tell them about your books." Oh, yeah. Yeah, matter of fact, here go my books. Yeah, here go two of my books and my stickers. And so this is what's programmed in their mind all the time, that adversity is coming. Life is not going to be unicorns and rainbows. There's going to be adversity. But when it comes, this is a perfect time for you to use your superpower. Show the world how strong you are. And they see me fighting every single day. They see me go through so much adversity all the time that I try to model the behavior that I want my kids to have. I want them to see it. I don't want to just be like, this is what you do. No, don't do as I do. Don't do as I say, do as I do. And I try to model that behavior. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But I operate from a place of a perfect heart. I have a perfect intention to be the greatest father that I can be, so that my kids can show up in the world and be the greatest that they can be. They didn't ask to be here. They wasn't like, hey, release. That was me saying, hey, y'all come on out. But my kids wasn't in there begging like, please, Daddy, bring me into the world. They ain't asked to be here. So I got to honor them by saying that was my choice, not yours. So since you here, without making a decision to be here, then I'm going to make sure that you understand how to be the greatest version of yourself. Embrace adversity. It's going to happen. My kids been through so much adversity, you wouldn't believe it. They can write a whole book on the adversity that they've been through at a young age already.
Yes,
and they will.
It's happening in schools. I mean, children have to deal with bullying, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
They have to deal with the peer pressure. And
absolutely.
So I'm very excited to learn. How do your children deal with the peer pressure?
It's a well, a lot of times, especially for my daughter, because my daughter skipped kindergarten. So she is in a grade above the grade she's supposed to be in. And then we live in Arizona, which is a border state. So now you have a lot of students who will come to Arizona, and they may be a year behind in terms of the grade, but that doesn't mean like the kids are any less intellectual like we try to make them. I be trying to tell the people, like, y'all don't know, these kids speak 2 languages. You speak 1, and they still doing better in English than you are. So you can't judge them, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, sometimes these kids end up getting held back a year because of the transition from Mexico to here. So on a maturity level, these kids are still mature. It's just that academically, they may not understand English as well as some of our native speakers. So my daughter ends up in classes with students who are 2 years older than her a lot of times. So wow. She's dealing with stuff where she's 9, but she's in a class with 11-year-olds who are getting ready to turn 12, and she's getting ready to turn 10. So it's a lot of, building them up to let them know that, wow, when she's feeling like, oh my God, I'm the smallest kid, I'm the youngest kid, I'm like, that's because, girl, you special. You got to
Yes.
be, this is part of what it takes for you to be great. Like everybody great has to go through something. This is your opportunity to be great. So now you're going to show up in the world as the greatest version of yourself. So I try to embed that in their head that adversity is what you got to go through to get to you can't just be great. You got to go through something to get to being great. So I put that in their head. Like when they were going through it, like, hey man, we had something happen to my kids, man, that truly traumatized my kids for life. We driving one night and we're getting ready to make a left turn, and I see 3 police cars in front of us. So, and they were like coming this way, and we're making the turn. So I make the turn, and they make the turn behind us. And I said, man, this is the most cops I've seen. I saw cops just parked alongside the road. Cops were making U-turns, and I said, man, let me get off this street. So I go to get over all the way in the right-hand lane. The cops hit the lights. So I said, man, let me move. So I speed up to try to get out the way. All of those cops come behind us. So we pull into the mall parking lot, and I'm telling my wife and kids, like, okay, let's stay calm. Let me get the camera. And all of a sudden, 8 police cars fan out. All the 16 doors open. Every cop has guns on us. Every single cop. The cop in front of us, cop in front of me, like to block me in, and there are cops all behind me. So cop cars are just coming. They get me out of the car at gunpoint, put me. My wife is pregnant with my third son at the time. They get her out at gunpoint, have her down, and they approach the car with a gun drawn with my kids in the back. So I'm screaming, trying to tell my kids to put their toys down because my son had his dinosaur that he loved so much. So I'm trying to tell him that's my kid in the back seat. That's my son. I don't want these people to think that it's a gun or something. So now they approach the car. It's my kids in there. They tell me that someone stole my tag, switched the tag out. The car came back stolen. They took the tag off, let me and my family just go. And my kids have been, shook and traumatized ever since. So this is something that is in their brains every time we're in the car. My son is always asking me about driving while black. I didn't tell him that.
Wow.
This is something that he picked up on his own. He chose to watch this on TV and say, wow, that's what happened to me and my family. He was 4.
That's traumatizing for sure. Gosh, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I get the shakes just thinking about it.
I got the video. Y'all have to see it. There was a lady in the Wendy's, because we was in the Wendy's parking lot, and the Wendy's was in between. We were right in between Wendy's and the shopping mall, and the lady recorded it, and we were so shook we had to go in and use the restroom. And she was like, "Oh my God, I recorded the whole thing." So I actually have the whole. I actually have the whole episode. Yeah, I have the whole thing on video. Wow. It went viral for a while. I just backed off of it because it was me and my family fighting against the 5th largest police department in America, and I just didn't think that would end well. And so we just kind of backed off of it. But we made, the local news, national news. Wow. So it was a thing for sure.
So you have definitely gone through the storm. Of course, one friend of mine says you're either going through the storm, you're in the storm, or you're out of the storm. And
oh yeah, I'm always in it.
You always in the storm. So even now, this is in this month. I know it's women's month, and women are being honored this month. But there's also other opportunities to acknowledge, like colon cancer awareness.
So let me just tell y'all something that's so crazy, right? So when I was a teacher of the year at West Point High School. Yes. I was the reigning teacher of the year. So I won teacher of the year. So this is the reigning teacher of the year. I'm a football coach. I am teacher of the year, yearbook advisor, just on all the committees, and something in my spirit was telling me that I need to focus on my health, and I want to go into entrepreneurship. So that whole year I was sick, and but when you're working and you're busy, you just push through it. You're just like, just keep going. So I kept going all the way to the end of the year. And the whole year, I was like, man, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to get back into entrepreneurship because I really want to focus on speaking.
Yes.
And so I'm going to focus on my health. So as soon as the school year was over, and this is how I know it was God. So I said, man, I don't feel comfortable just walking away from my job unless I got a certain amount of money. So I was like, how much money I need in my savings account? So I was like, man, okay, my mortgage is this month. This is this, this is this. Okay, my wife, we all on her insurance. So I'm like, I need about this much money per month. So I start saving money investing money. I took $125 and turned it into $25,000. $125 turned it into $25,000. I got my check at the end of the year from the school. It's $10,000. I got another gig over here. I got $18,000 here. So I paid off all the things. I don't have no car note. I got enough money to pay my mortgage for a year. I'm going to focus on being an entrepreneurship. I'm going all in. So now I had all of my medical. I was double covered, right? So I had my medical benefits for my job as a teacher, and I was also covered through my wife's job.
Yes.
And then I also had my life insurance policies, everything through my job. So now I'm talking to one of my friends. I tell him, man, I'm getting ready to leave my job, but I need to transfer everything up out of that job into a whole life policy. I want $1 million policy. So I'm having this conversation with him, and he's like, bet, let's do it. So we got everything set up. He was like, bro, it's like, for this, you only need one thing, bro. When you get that physical, oh, bro, look how God working it out, bro. I got to go to the doctor anyway because I've been dealing with some issues. So this is perfect. So we called the doctor, call him a little, oh, okay. Then we call because I was dealing with some stomach issues, you know what I mean? Then it started getting super intense. So I was like, okay, let's go get this checked out. So the first thing they recommended was, well, let's look down your throat. So we want an endoscopy and a colonoscopy just to see what's going on inside of your stomach. I'm like, all right, cool. So go in. I tell them, yeah, I got my appointment. I'm going to go have an endoscopy, colonoscopy on this day. And then I'm going to go see my doctor on this day. So I'll be able to get you everything you need, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool, bet. That's perfect, man. I go in to have that colonoscopy. My wife is pregnant with our 4th kid. And when I woke up, that dude said, yeah, you had a polyp right there. We removed this one and, this, and this. But this right here, this tumor is. So, and he was, I just woke up. I had been down up under anesthesia for however long they take. I don't even know.
And normally they have this procedure, the colonoscopy, when the man is 50 years old.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that too, because, if in a natural world, it may be 50, but living in the world that we live in now with the food we consume and how we, what I mean? So the guy, so I wasn't understanding what he was saying. So I said, are you telling me I got cancer? And he said, I hate to be the one to tell you this, Mr. Nelson, but yes, you have cancer. And that was how I found out. So now, I walk outside, wife and kids in the van, and I'm still kind of not, you know what I mean? You just kind of wake up from
you're drowsy from the medication.
So the reality still ain't really like, the math wasn't mathing for me at that point. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of put it all together. So when I go sit in the car and I'm like, man, he's like, what did he say? And I'm like, man, that man said I got cancer. So I'm like, man. So I go home the next day. I call back to the doctor and they say, well, yeah, we sent you over to a referral to a surgeon and you should be getting a call. So then I get a call from the surgeon and then they say, yeah, we want to get you in 2 weeks. I said, man, these people told me I got cancer. Y'all want to see me in 2 weeks? I said, what am I supposed to do between then? He said, well, we don't have your file yet. He said, we just got the recommendation. He said, so we get your file over or whatever it is, documentation over, and it's something more serious, then we'll call you back. And I was like, all right. He called me back that same day and said, hey, man, can you be here tomorrow? I was like, yep, I'll be there. So I go see the surgeon, and the surgeon starts talking about prepping me for surgery to cut it out. You're going to be a better person for this, and you're going to go through, he's telling me all this stuff. Now, you may have to wear a bag. He started telling me about a colostomy bag and all this stuff, man. So I'm like, it was overwhelming for me at that point. So then I go home. We call the cancer center, the Cancer Treatment Center of America. They don't even think I have cancer for real. So they don't even want to take me. So we convinced them based upon what they said. They contact the doctor, get the information, have me come in. And then they said, well, we're going to do scans, more scans. We have the biopsy and it's confirmed that it is cancer, but we have to do more scans. All right. So they do more scans. And one of my friends, she says, man, what did the scan say? I said, I don't know, man. I just did the scans today, but I don't get the results until Wednesday. She says, nah, man, they update your file immediately. So I was like, she was like, can you not log into your portal? And I was like, yeah. So she's like, log into your patient portal. So I log into my patient portal. And once I get into the patient portal, I start reading the stuff myself. And then I saw that the cancer had spread to my liver. So when I go to the doctor to have the conversation with the doctor is now telling me we got the biopsy back, as you know. And also, it looks as if it spread to your liver. So we're going to have to do another biopsy on your liver. And then she started to tell me everything that they was going to have to do to my body. And she pulled up the little chart. And when she said, yeah, we may have to, best case scenario, we'll just remove this. Worst case scenario, we got to remove all of this. And at that point, I was recording too. And you know what was so crazy? Let me tell y'all something crazy. That day, I had on my Black Panther dashiki. It was black and gold dashiki with all the. I was thinking about Chadwick Boseman, and I was like, man, you know what I mean. So I literally had on my black dashiki. I was recording, and I felt myself getting like lightheaded. So I stopped recording, and that was the last thing I remember. I passed out like all the way out, like limp body,
just from the overwhelm.
Yeah. So they was panicking.
Wow.
You know, when I woke up, I had been out for a while because when I woke up, it was like 8 people in there working on me. They had me hooked up to all kind of stuff. And when I opened my eyes, I didn't see nothing because I was right up under that big light. Yes. So when I opened my eyes, I couldn't even see straight. I could see nothing but blur and light. So I thought I was transitioning to death. So I was like, damn. I was like, did I have a heart attack and die? Am I dying? Like, I literally thought I was dying. That was the only thing I could think of. Because people say, oh, the light. So that in my mind, I wasn't even thinking straight. So that was the only thing I could think about was, oh my God, I may be dying. I was like, I don't want to die. So I'm trying to. So when I sit up, they said, oh my God, he's back with us. And they start saying, Mr. Nelson, do you know where you are? I'm just out of it. So I just told them to call my dad. So they get my phone, unlock it, and I just say, call dad. They called my dad. And the crazy thing, my dad was a patient at the same cancer center that I was a patient at. And he celebrated the 1 year being cancer free. The next day I got diagnosed with cancer. So they called him. So they called him. He come up there, you know, and I get rehydrated. But on that day, I had an epiphany, right? So I said, dang, man, I could have died. Like, just like that. Like, my life could have been over. Then I was like, if I would have died, what would really matter? And then I realized, like, man, we spend so much time worrying about stuff that don't even matter. If you die right now, the majority of the stuff that you worry about wouldn't even matter tomorrow. So I was like, the only thing that really mattered was the safety and well-being of my kids, because I knew my wife, she get it out the mud. She gonna be all right. But my sons, I had 3 sons. So I'm like, man, these dudes need me. Like, that's what matters. When my son was born, my last son was born, I had the chemo pump on my hip. When they was pulling him out, they was pumping chemo inside of my body. It's like a fanny pack, and the fanny pack runs up into the port. I still have the port in right now in my chest, and it runs up into my chest, and every couple seconds, it does. It just pumps chemo into my body. So they pulling him out. I literally got the chemo pump on my hip, and that was the last time I ever took chemo. After that, I got off chemo. I went 100% naturopathic, and I've been fighting it the natural way ever since that last day of chemo on April 19, 2021. And I haven't been on chemo or any of their medications since. And I was able to, when I was diagnosed, I was 246 pounds, pre-diabetic with stage 4 cancer. I was able to completely reverse the diabetes, and I shrunk the cancer lesion down so small in my body, they start asking me, what do I do? I went to the doctor in December and found out that the cancer spread back to my liver. I went to the doctor 2 weeks ago, and he told me that I had shrunk the cancer down so small that it didn't make sense for them to do anything to me other than what I had chose to do for myself, because he felt that was the best treatment program. So I created my own cancer fighting program. So I'm fighting stage 4 cancer holistically, you know, using my own methods. I use their blood work. I use their equipment. And then once I get the blood work, I read the blood work. I see what's where. I see where my deficiencies are. I see what my weaknesses are. I see what my life vulnerability is. And then I customize a program to build my body up to fight the effects of what cancer is trying to do. Cancer can't kill me. It's what it's trying to do to my body that can kill me. So if I can fight off the effects of what it's trying to do to me, then it can't kill me. So I got stage 4, but stage 4 ain't got me.
Hallelujah. Woo, what a testimony. Hydrate, what a testimony.
That story,
it's leaves you speechless. You to come back from stage 4 cancer.
Yeah, so I went from stage 4 to stage 0 back to stage 4. Yeah, so I went
twice.
Stage 4. Yeah, so I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer on the exact same day twice. June 22nd, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer twice on the exact same day.
Wow. And now you're cancer free.
No, I'm back at stage 4 now. I went from 4.
He's still fighting it with homeopathic.
You're still fighting? You're still fighting cancer?
Yes.
Wow. And you're fighting cancer and letting everyone know you're living with adversity. So that's why you say you're still in the storm, because you are literally in the storm fighting cancer. And you are encouraging and motivating other people on a daily basis, I'm sure, to say, hey, be the greatest.
Absolutely.
You know, I had this thought, Wadre, when you were talking about being the storm. I'm a big Rocky fan, so I think of Eye of the Tiger. And you said, I am the storm. I said, maybe we should just rename you the Eye of the Storm.
Yeah, and that was I was going to say, is that I'm in the storm, but I'm in the eye of the storm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because a turmoil going on around me, but I'm sitting in the eye. I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the eye. The storm move, I move with it, but I stay in the eye of the storm.
Yes.
There's a whole song on that. I don't know if you know that song. You got to hear that song. I'm going to send it to you.
Please do.
Yes.
Incredible.
I want to hear it too.
Yeah, I'll send it to both of you. God is good. Gosh.
Yes, so you guys need to tune in each and every Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Power Fighters Live. Catch us on Facebook. Type in Power Fighters Live. Search it. Type it in youtube.com, Power Fighters Live. Watch it live. We're here. We're here with amazing, amazing people who God created to be great. And we want you to listen to their story, because I know it's going to change your life. The right person is going to hear the right story at the right time in that moment. Whatever you're dealing with, whatever adversity you're going through, Roderick Nelson is here to come talk to you. And so,
absolutely,
Roderick, so much, with us, and we have some believers in the house, and my glorious Jacob saying God is so good. And so, yes, he is so good. So we do appreciate the goodness of God. And we do. It's a pleasure having met you. I know this is our first time seeing one another. We've been on the phone talking. And, I thank Don for connecting us. And I do appreciate you, being here on March 17th. It's Colon Cancer Awareness Month. Everyone, I know that they have that color guard out there. I'm not advertising color guard. However, I am saying get yourself checked. Your health is the most important thing. Your health is your wealth, because without your health, you have nothing. You have nothing else. And being a believer, yes.
I'll say, if anybody's questioning whether they should get a colonoscopy, if you graduated from the year 1990 to the year 2000 and you haven't had one, then you should get one. Yeah, you should definitely get one.
Yes, this is like Don says. Thank you, Don, for being here. Don Kirkwood Santee is a powerful. You have the most powerful story. Dave, what you think? We need to have a part 2, don't we?
I think so, but there's something I actually want to bring out into this, and I want you to kind of give that final word, Wadre, on this, because I think there's something that you said that's important. You were talking about all the things that were running through your head in that moment when you thought that you were transitioning. And I heard a quote a couple days ago that hit me like a spiritual 2x4 upside the head. I'm going to say this quote, and then I want you to share what the most important things that were running through your head in that moment, again, because I don't want anyone to miss that, because life is fragile. It's absolutely fragile. Here's the quote. It went like this: fame, right? Because I know we're always seeking something, right? We want some level of fame is exposing yourself to people you don't really care about in exchange for time with those that you do. That hit hard. And so I think it relates to what you were trying to say there. So please give us the final word. What truly mattered in that moment?
Really just you think about your legacy. I started thinking like 100 years from now, like what's going to matter in 100 years, because we all going to die. And it put me in a position where You know, we think about death as a later thing, but I'm like, if I die right now, what will matter in 100 years? You know, what really mattered? So it's a lot of stuff that I thought that was of value, it had none. A lot of conflicts that existed, they weren't really conflicts. A lot of problems they weren't really problems. The main thing was, what are you teaching your kids? You know, what's your legacy going to be? You know, I got diagnosed with cancer in 2021, and since then I published 4 books, 5 books since then, you know, because that was something that mattered. If I died now, my kids could eat off of these books for the next however many years. I recently had the opportunity to speak for Mars Wrigley, the company who makes Snickers and Wrigley's gums and all that stuff like that. And the guy who started it, Frank C. Mars, in 1911, he was making candy at his house, and now his great grandchildren are billionaires. So I thought about what I could do, what will my legacy be? Not just the money, but what truly generationally was I going to leave? And it just put everything in perspective, because I wasn't thinking I was
Yes.
going to die now, but I know I'm going to die eventually. Everybody is. And we all need to be thinking about, what are we doing now to position our legacy so that way we can live for the next 100 years. You know, I always say, if I die today, I'm going to live forever, you know, because I'm putting things in the universe that will still be around long after I'm not. I'm still creating vibrations that are gonna hit the world, that even after I'm gone. The Bible is thousands of years old and people still read it. So as an author, you know, I started writing, documenting, recording, taking pictures, and just figuring out a strategic way to be able to leave a legacy behind for my kids. So that way, even if I wasn't here, I could pass on the wisdom. So I just started to try to info dump and get everything out. But you know, you really can't go from having stage 4 cancer to stage 0 cancer back to stage 4 and really not learn something. And I'll say that the biggest takeaway that I had from that experience was, when I went from stage 4 to stage 0, I did what I had to do. You know, I did everything I had to do, and then it came back. But I didn't become what I needed to become. You know, a lot of times we'll do stuff so we can have something, but we're not human doings or human havings. We're human beings. So I was trying to do what I needed to do, but I didn't become the person I needed to become to remain cancer free. So the cancer came back, and now it's forcing me to be the person that I need to be cancer free, and not just do the things that it takes to beat cancer.
Right. Life
Mm.
isn't about what you're doing or what you're going to, it's about who you're becoming. Right. I
Yeah.
literally had this conversation with a good friend of mine late last night. It's all about becoming. That's powerful. And another thing I was going to say too is that, you know, one of the most inspirational things I ever heard actually was to die empty.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're filled up with so many things, and so much is happens in our lives, and so little of it is shared, right? So take everything that's in you and get rid of it, right? Is meant to be
Mm-hmm.
shared, because eventually death is certain. So die empty.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes. 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 Wow. I'm just ready for part two. Can we continue recording? I know it's Friday night, and we do thank you so much for being here, because you could have been anywhere tonight at 7 o'clock, and we are so thankful and appreciative that you were here with us. Why, Drake
Mm-hmm.
Nelson, you have really touched my heart, my soul, and my mind, because your mindset through it all, you have learned a lot, and I'm just continue. We say here on Power Fighters Life, be, do, and have the greatness you desire, because the greatness is in you.
Mm-hmm. And
And
you know my motto: be the greatest you that you can be.
Maybe we
there,
all need to have those hats. We need to start wearing them when we do
Yes,
Power
I'll get
Fridays.
y'all some. I got
yes,
y'all.
I would love that.
I got
yes,
you.
yes,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And this is going to be for your family, for my family, for Dave's family, for years and years to come. And this is a conversation to look back on, and to know whatever you're dealing with right now, listen to this episode and know that the adversity is not greater than who you are. You
Mm-hmm.
are greater than adversity.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks for being with us. Thanks so much for, being with us. And I have requested, yes, we need a part two. We have a couple of fans that says we need a part 2. So we will definitely schedule a part 2. Why Drake?
I know, because we didn't even get into the end of the books or any of that stuff. So yeah, we got to do a part 2.
Yes. So we will do a part 2, and I look so forward to that because it's your story's amazing. You are available for speaking engagements, aren't you?
Absolutely, I am. All they have to do is go to whydrakenelson.com, and I pull up in your city. And I promise you this: whether it be a school, whether it be a corporation, I'm bring everything I got to empower, motivate, inspire whoever's in the audience to show up as the greatest version of yourself. And holistically, if you're a father, a mother, we want you to be the greatest father, be the greatest mother, greatest brother, whatever it is that you do. We're going to inspire you to be the greatest be the greatest you that you can be.
I love it.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week on Power Fridays Live, and have a great weekend, guys. Thanks.